Okay.
This meeting is being recorded.
I notice that little thing always comes on there when we start. Hey, everybody, welcome to another podcast tonight of Shipmate Self, the Clubhouse. Tonight, we have a special guest with us that I'm going to let Scott introduce. As always, if you guys find this content helpful, please share it with a friend, like our YouTube page. It helps us grow this and get other guys that would benefit from this this time. But I'm gonna turn it over this evening. I don't have a funny story tonight about some game that I'm watching, so we're just gonna have to start. Scott, I'll let you introduce Jay.
Yeah, we got a special guest, man, Jason Vena. So for the guys that don't know Jay Vay, he's right now currently the coach at Trinidad State. He played for me back in the day for a couple seasons. He grew up in Lamar, Colorado. Ironically, with that is that was a rival, so I snuck in there and stole a kid out of Lamar, which I enjoyed every minute of it. Jay also managed and played for the Regina Red Sox, which is another team that's in this group of guys. So pretty solid kid. I just enjoyed every minute of my interaction with Jason, and he's a neat human being. And so what's exciting about this is Jocko and I are discussing anxiety, and we're just going to put you right on the hot seat, JV, with tell us about in your life what anxiety feels like, what it means in Jason Vena's life. And then we're just going to go from there, buddy. So you're on the hot seat, man.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. I really enjoyed the podcast, and how we crossed paths was really instrumental in my growth as a player and coach, because as a player, I didn't feel confident. So I think a lot of my anxiety started there. It's just, not being sure of myself on the playing side, and struggled with the bat my freshman year at Trinidad State, but was on a good squad with mature dudes that were going after it. So I really wanted to fit in as a player. So naturally there was some anxiety there. But nowadays I've got 3 kids, and the schedule really just rolls. And, I talk to my players that they consume a lot of what we think about as a coaching staff nowadays. And, but really, I think a lot of things that I see now, anxiety for me is really just more in coaching and maybe mentoring players, because they've been through it, seen it, and I knew what they needed at their age because I'd been through that with you and all the clubhouse talks. So really, the big one for me, just going through life, and we're kind of going through it right now with the team down at Trinidad, is just, nobody guarantees that everything's going to be easy or, it's going to be paved how we think. So we always fell back on mottos, whether that was with you or with Rob Cherspushik and the Red Sox, of trust defeats fear, and, trusting your brother, the guy you lock arms with and practice with every day, sweat, fight with whatever. We try to make it to where we're mentally trying to become tougher. And that's a hard thing to accomplish nowadays, when kids and, younger guys see other people doing other things, whether that's D1 or this or that and the other. And we try to compare and stack ourselves against so many people. So I think our players' anxieties just rushing to them of wanting to be somewhere else. So being present's a huge thing for us. But really for me, where I hit a roadblock in life and it really tested my faith and things like that and challenged me mentally, was losing my daughter. We were expecting our first child and super pumped up, and living in Oklahoma City at the moment, and decided to move back to Lamar so that the baby could be around all the family, grandparents on both sides. My wife's from Lamar too. And we ended up, no signs, no nothing really, besides my wife saying she doesn't feel good. Around 7 months, we had just done the baby. Her name was Ophelia. We had just done her shower. And so we were pretty confident, everything's going good. And then we found out that she was stillborn, and that really rocked us. I mean, nothing can really prepare us for that. And, I talk to guys all the time in the clubhouse. I said, my life is still not secure. What if I have cancer? What if, something else hits us and kind of derails us for a bit? How are we going to respond? And it's always tricky presenting that, because that's a huge deal compared to us just playing a game. But I think it speaks volumes when we talk about guys blowing up and and having a fit out on the field and trying to keep things in perspective. We obviously want guys that have fire and play with fire, but knowing how to put things in their place correctly and say, hey, I'm going to be challenged with bigger things. What can I learn here to maybe build some skills to fight that or get through that? And really, I mean, you know, day to day is just helping these guys. I get anxiety just seeing them being so anxious to move on up or to have success, and they don't realize, you know, it's a process in terms of a player. I've been through it. Shoot, I hit 219 my first year or something awful. Glove kept me on the field there, and you know, it takes a lot of work that way. But on the mental side, I think a lot of guys experience the mental of maybe I'm not on the field all the time. Maybe, you know, I've been on the field and now I'm hitting a slump. What do I do now? Or even the bigger picture, right? Where we try to handle things like, you know, dad's having surgery and he just had a heart attack and, you know, things like that. How do you coach kids through this when maybe their faith doesn't align with their emotions at the moment, you know, and it can be overwhelming for a kid that's handling school away from home, loves dad to death or whatever it is. So some of those moments of just being a guy in my stall at Trinidad State, you know, I didn't maybe need some of those things immediately, but down the road, definitely.
JV, how does it, give me some hints on how it feels. So when you wake up in the morning, do you feel anxiety there? What does it feel like to you? Maybe if it's not on a daily basis, maybe on a weekly basis, what does it feel like when you get up in the morning, and how does it manifest in you? Like, I know for me, I can tell I'm anxious in my stomach. That's where it is for me. It's it tosses and turns, and sometimes it's the 12 cups of coffee I've had, which will laugh, but at the same token, that does play into this. And so, and Jocko will touch on that in some ways too. What does it look like for you?
It's pretty present. I mean, I that's what I really enjoy about this is, you know, being male. I think we try to hide some things or battle them inside or up here, and for me, it's present. I mean, I wake up and, you know, I'll be honest. Early on in this season, and even with the Red Sox and with my old high school team that I was coaching, it was just immediately, you know, what's got to be done today, and it was just constant of, okay, I got this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that, and it's like, all right, be present. Let's focus on what we got to do right now, and you know, growing as a coach and experience more things and more responsibilities. It was just like, okay, more stuff has to be done at night, you know, in my prep time and whatever else. But really, something that helped me was I read a book when I was younger. I was going to Metro for a sophomore. I was just a sophomore in high school, and I went over to Metro, and I think it was Bobby Price or Pierce, I forget his last name, but he shared a book with the whole group, and it was called Mind Gym. And that one was pretty solid for me. It taught positive self-talk. And then another one was I did yoga a lot in high school, and then I never thought of it as a thing of religion. So, you know, I would say prayers, and prayers just brought more anxiety to me because it just creates, you know, wanting things to happen earlier or things you're worried about, you're constantly thinking about when you're praying. So that was really a tough one for me. But I did yoga a lot in high school and college, and that really helped me slow my breathing and kind of just be present of, hey, this needs to happen first in the day, and then this, and then this, and then this. And, you know, it was never really a big deal. And so I've kind of used that tool as a piece to coach as well. It's just like, okay, who do we have? Go check the board. You know, when moments get big for guys and the game speeds up on a guy and you want to help him out, maybe get him out of there or slow the game down. You know, for me, it was just breathe and think about our best options and do that early. And obviously having a good staff, the guys that have been at a high level helps too.
Thanks for sharing that, buddy. Jocko, you got anything to jump in on?
Yeah. No, I just wanted to comment. Thank you, Jay. A lot of these are things that are super helpful. You know, yoga is something that I've recently started doing every day for about 20 to 40 minutes. And it's so painful being an old guy, but it makes me do deep breathing for 40 minutes. Yeah. And it's an incredible thing. And it's also this idea that men often do well with being in their body. So if you can get yourself into your body, that can get you out of your head, right? So yoga is a great tool for that. And I also think it releases things. So like when I'm doing yoga and I'm stretching, I'm releasing energy or trauma or whatever you want to call that, anxiety, through my body's motion. And men, a lot of us have that kind of inattention hyperactivity piece that's with us. And so yoga is a very physical way that you can get in your body and do that deep breathing, and that can really be helpful. And I think another thing that really resonated, Jay, with what you said is that it's hard to stay in the present moment, right? We talk about anxiety being rumination about the future. So our brains can become this constant, what we call like a, just a wheel going all the time, thinking about the next step. What do I got to do, right? And bringing yourself back to your breath, bringing you back to like that brain gym book sounds really awesome, right? Probably like disciplining yourself to stay in the moment, to use positive self-talk, notice when you're doing all or nothing thinking, jumping to conclusions, right? And then finally, I'm going to stop talking here in a second, is I think it's really important what you said about your coaches, right? Just having guys that can talk it out, right? Putting our feelings and emotions into words is magic, right? It can bring us into the moment. It can get reminders from guys that are smarter or older who can say, hey, I've been here before. I'm here with you in this moment. And that can be really helpful. So those are just a few things that came up.
Jocko,
sure. And yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, Jocko, don't ever stop talking, buddy. We want to, the stuff you say is so invaluable. So, JV, go ahead, buddy.
I was just going to say, I stepped into college baseball thinking it was something different, and I was blessed to have you as a coach, and not to kiss ass or anything, but it was just, I needed another mentor to prepare me for things I didn't know I was going to go through, and how tough the transition would be from high school to college, and then eventually college to Indy or whatever I was going to experience. So, beyond that, I really learned a foundation of what to trust. I was honestly doing yoga to just keep range as a shortstop and a middle infielder and keep my body healthy. And then I found out through hatha yoga, for doing it for so many years, of how to breathe and drop my heart rate and control some things. And then obviously the Mind Gym book, they had a constant saying in there, it was A-Rod, and I know he's on steroids at the time, so the game was easier, but I mean, he just told himself every day in batting practice, I hit the ball solid, and I made that a focus, and it really helped me a lot my sophomore year when I took off at Trinidad State. So that was instrumental for me, and I found some faith on that side of maybe controlling my mind and emotions a little bit better.
That makes me think, if I ever coached again, and maybe those days have passed me by, but if I ever did again, I think yoga needs to be part of the off season, maybe the all season program. Guys don't even need to know that it's more on the mental side, because the physical, it's going to take care of, so they would be bought in on the physical, just, the stretching and all the things with it. But man, I think it's something that needs to be incorporated into a program, for sure.
Definitely. Like, honestly, this talk makes me want to, we have our pitchers do it twice a week, but our position guys probably need it more, just having this talk and realizing, because I'm not a brainiac. I don't know all the other sides of it like Jocko does, or, the science behind it all. I just thought I was doing it to stay healthy. So.
No, Jocko can touch on it more because he's going to send me some stuff that he's doing. But I think, and I'm going to get started, because just from us talking right now, I realize, man, that should have been incorporated. I didn't know, and that should have. They don't need to know. You know what I mean? They don't.
Right.
There's enough there physically just to take care of that, but the research is all there. It's all there on what it's doing to us biologically and chemically. Jocko?
Yeah, I just had one other thing, and I want to go to, we all kind of touched on this a little bit, but I think diet is super important too, right? Like I am right now drinking way too much coffee every day, and it just ramps me up. And I realized the other day, before I was going into a session, I was like, what the hell is going on with you right now? And I'm like, oh, you've had 6 cups of coffee. That's what's going on. So sometimes I drink coffee to increase attention, but it also revs up the anxiety, right? Gets the brain going. So I think it's really important for us to talk about diet, right? Like if you're eating a lot of sugary foods, a lot of fast foods, if you're having a lot of caffeine, especially we want to not have caffeine after 2 p.m. because that interrupts your sleep cycle. Marijuana, alcohol after 2 p.m., it's going to mess up your sleep cycle. We're going to want to have 6 to 8 hours before we've stopped using either caffeine, tobacco, guys that chew, alcohol, all of these things we want to stop and have at least 6 to 8 hours, and more is better, right? But they can really mess with your sleep cycle and your nutrition, right? So these are some things that probably, and I want to hear from you guys, maybe how you've noticed how food or other things have impacted anxiety.
Well, I know with me, so what you're saying is dude shouldn't smoke a joint, crush a bucket of fried chicken, and yeah, right. And just think of the baseball lifestyle.
Right.
Think of
GC.
oh man. I mean, think of how it's promoted. I mean, late night meals are provided and they're not the best meals. And I mean the lifestyle just sits for nasty leaky gut syndrome, fat. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just set up against the player. I mean, just the way the lifestyle goes. I mean, especially in some of those leagues like independent ball, pro ball, summer leagues, on how the day is structured. It's all set up against a guy where he should probably be anxiety filled just on the lifestyle, and probably not even know what the hell's going on. And that's the unfair part, in that. I know with me, like yesterday, I try to make this like, okay, what would be a good example? When I coached you, JV, and I was anxiety full. If I had to gauge anxiety on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being full blown, I mean, just not good, man. I've been there. I've had that sucker rev to 10 and not good, man. But I lived in a range of probably 7 to 8. That's not healthy. I lived that way for as long as I could remember. And how it played out for me is when I woke up, it was waiting for me. I was nervous as hell to start the day. Had no clue, just figured that's how life works. And that is a horrible way to live. And so I'm telling this to guys in here because I know that this is the number one topic amongst these guys in this group. And you don't have to live that way. That's the hope. No, something is not right. The check engine light is on, and it's time to bring that baby into the shop. And with what Jocko said, the best way to fix that thing right away is a couple things. The first thing they should look at is diet, and then the second thing, and right beside it, and either way, exercise. And if you're and clean those two up right away, get started, find out what you need to know. Jocko has a lot of resources, and so do I, on those things. Start there, and then go to thoughts. How do I think? Just go there. How do I think? Because I'd wake up and that's what was waiting for me, as I had to fix everything. To me, this is all about fear of the unknown. This is what this is about. We struggle as human creatures with the unknown. And so what do? Scott Douglas tried to make it predictable. He would wear himself out to make it predictable and as best he could. And I wore myself out, man. You live a life. I'm just warning guys, and I mean this from my heart. You keep living with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, driving your vehicle that way. You keep living that way, you are headed for a disaster. And you don't mess with that, because that, who knows how that can play out. It's not to be, and I excuse my language, you don't fuck with that. You don't. And so get the car in the shop and get those things taken care of to start with. And then the other thing, and then I'll turn this back over to you guys, with me, that really hit home. Like, I'm driving in my car yesterday, long trip, and it was the day before, actually. I was on the road seeing Cade, and so I've been on a little journey here, which I really enjoy. Good time to reflect and do those things. But I had anxiety, and it was probably between I don't know, maybe a 5 and a 7, like a mild, moderate one. It was building though. And I thought, oh, this is interesting because I knew we were going to do this podcast, and I knew I was going to stop in and see Jason and Lamar because Trinidad played Lamar. And so I just thought this is interesting, but I thought this is neat because instead of panicking, I let that surface and thought, okay, what do we got going on here, man? What do we got? Like, this doesn't rule me anymore. So I'm going to let it come to the surface. And I'm giving you a tool right now, the guys in the group, and Jocko's aware of this, and Jason somewhat too. But this will be for you too, JB. What do I have? What is this all about? Ironically, Jocko, it was coffee. There was some coffee intake in there. So so what that means to me is that this anxiety should probably only be a 3, which is very manageable. But because of the coffee, and I'm making this shit up right now, buddy, as you can tell as we go along. So because of the coffee, it's a 5.5 cruising 6. So there's nothing wrong. I mean, there's a few things. And then I'm tired. I am tired, man. I've been on the road. I need to get home to my own bed. And I've been eating like shit. Stopped at the Allsups and got two and I would do this again. So guys, I mean, it was outstanding. A Coke and 2 refried burritos. Refried. Yeah. And so, but I'm joking around, but those babies, what I just told you just took an anxious situation from 2 to possibly 8, maybe a 7. So, but when you know that, you don't have to panic, man. You just think, dude, like, get some water, flush the system out, get home, you know what I mean? And start making some better diet choices. And I know it's more than that, but so for me, and I'll end on this, the unknown. My story, and we'll get into this more as we roll through our podcasts, and but it's so linked to your story too, and in your life history. And I come from a background where it was scary. The future was scary. There was no security. There was no safety. And I'm not knocking how I was raised. It's just the way some things were. And when you have that, you are automatically gonna try to to control the unknown, to make it predictable. And here's the downside of that. The exciting part of life is the unknown. That's where life is lived. We're not supposed to try and control it. So there's your anxiety right there. The unknown is supposed to be the adventure, the exciting part. And so it's a mindset change. When I'm in the unknown, and I'm in it right now, you'll go in and out of the unknown throughout life's journey all the time, it seems. But every day, it's good if the unknown shows up, because that means you are present, you are in the present moment, you're awake. And man, who knows what the tide will wash in. Today's going to be an exciting day, and that changes the whole mindset. Before, I try to control it, if you're following me, make it predictable. Now I'm like, I don't want that. I want the unknown to show up, roll in, and now I get a fresh day, a gift to say, wow, what's today going to bring? So that's anxiety to me.
Yeah, and I think one thing that you said, Scott, that is really important. We've talked about this idea that with things like anxiety and depression, we don't want to push it down or away, because then it comes back more frequent and intensely. So we want to be present with our anxiety. We want to feel into it, identify into our bodies, relax and release. You can do that through breathing. You can do that through visualization. We're going to watch the anxiety leave our body. We're going to feel into it. We're going to recognize it, but we're not going to push it down in our way, because that's what's going to make it worse. It's like we call it exposure therapy. We're going to lean into it, recognize it, and then we're going to visualize releasing it after we feel it in our body. So that's one of the biggest tools that can be helpful. And it sounds like on that ride, you didn't fight it, you were present with it. And that's huge.
Yeah. And as I was, that was neat, because hear me out. It doesn't, we all know that it does not feel good, man. It's uncomfortable. But you know what? I've also known the unknown is uncomfortable. And we are so uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. And then we've got to find a way to say, no, man, that's where life is lived. That's what this is about. So there has to be some kind of a shift.
Yeah. I think what you said that hit me most was the fear of unknown. And, we go through and relate with baseball, and I try to remind myself, no one game I've played or coached in my life has ever been the same. So don't try to control it, just fall back on tools that have been reinforced. And then it really echoed over into my life when we lost our first child, and then we had two more. And those whole 9 months were just chaotic because I'd wake up thinking something's wrong, And so I would combat that with, well, let's go play soccer. I never played indoor soccer, but I was teaching high school at the moment, and it was great exercise, man. It put me to sleep. My brain wasn't rolling at night, like it does when you're a manager in baseball. You just, have a hard time shutting it off, maybe because I ate too late after a game or whatever, So that, and then being a father, I think this is the last piece I'll touch on is, I have certain things down the road, with my kiddos. My daughter's 6, Aviana's 6, and Perry is 3. He'll be 4 in August. But, their uncertainty when they were being born just ate at me. And now that she's in school now, school shootings is another big thing. Every time I see it, it's just like, gosh, man, we try to control these things, and sometimes they're overwhelming whenever we don't. So things that have helped me is maybe just, talking to my wife or even players in the clubhouse about, hey, these are some of the things, and you can hear it on a daily basis in our clubhouse. The guys that come in talking about certain things going on in life like that, like our current events, and, oh, did you hear about that shooting in Denver? The guys were talking about the other week. So we address those things. And I think that helps us. And that was the same way it was with you. We weren't afraid to kind of break the baseball mode and go into life. So those are some of the things that have really hit me. And I think that's kind of what we're looking for today on the anxiety piece of, I may not be able to control that, but man, I hope my daughter's in a great situation and all this stuff. She got freaked out. They had a lockdown this year. She's in kindergarten, and it was horrible. I mean, we had to go get her from school that day, and a fear that I'd never thought of. There it is. There's the unknown, and what that can mean to her looks a whole lot different when you're not there to help handle that.
Yeah, and I think with that, what you said, the common word is fear, and how we handle that, and when it comes into a young person's life. So that thing with your daughter is huge, because I would revisit that, and maybe you already taken care of it, but I would revisit that if it pops up again, because you have no idea what she's doing with that. And love needs to always be there. Love will always, without a doubt, win and trump fear, always. And when love shows up, fear just dissipates, dissolves. So you talk it through with her, and you let her know, yeah, these things do happen. You don't lie. They
Right.
do happen. But here's the good things going on. Here's the, a shift in focus. Here's what's in place, and here's what the, all the good things in life that are happening, and you flood it with that, and it makes a huge difference in a kid's life, man. And it makes a huge difference in a team's life when you can come in. I was teaching school when 9/11 happened. I was at Trinidad State, and I had a class. I'll never forget it. I walked into class. We had class that day. I had about, well, I don't know, 20 some kids in there, all 18 years old, all athletes from all sports. Dead silence. They were in shock. And so was I, to be honest with you. And then I remember thinking, man, let's just talk about this. So we talked about it. I don't know. I don't remember what was said, but it was a very unique experience, because those kids were looking at me like, hey, what the hell is going on? And fear was present, and when fear's present, anxiety will be a result of that fear, one way or another. But it's not something to be beat. I think it's just something that we come in and say, hey, man, let's talk about what happened. Let's get the facts out there. Let's talk about what's going on. Where do we go from here? And because love doesn't buckle down and hide and run. Love seems to say all the time, whether it's through courage or whatever, what do we do now? What do we do with this? And when you start there, man, you're gonna build momentum and but it's always like, let's get the facts. I've always thought about that. What are the facts? Don't tell me what you think and your opinion. And then you get a guy you get Jocko, who's ate 6 pounds of fried chicken over a dumpster, which I want to tell that story, by the way, one day. He has all these stories about me, and I've got some Jocko stories. But you got his opinion, and he's ate too much fried chicken. You got my opinion. I've drank too much coffee. And next thing you know, fear has gained momentum. And so you got to be careful when that, like, don't let everyone just run in and have a fearful opinion. Get the facts, sit down, and especially like as a family, as a team, and then as an individual, when you got something going on in your life. I've got a few challenges I'm going to be facing here soon that I'll share down the line, that I'm just getting the facts, and then I'm going to deal with it, and I'm going to move forward. That's it. So, Jocko.
Yeah, we are at time, guys, so I'm gonna have to wrap us up, but thank you both for being here again tonight. This has been an awesome conversation. And one final comment about what you guys were both just talking about. I think it's the role of connection. We've talked about the idea that being connected can treat depression, it can treat anxiety, having a place to talk something out, in the clubhouse, Jay, what you were talking about, Scott, in your classroom about 9/11, just having a space, right? That can be such a cathartic thing for anxiety. But some people have, more of what's called an anxiety disorder, and sometimes you have to talk to a therapist, like a person like me. That can be extremely helpful. They can get tips, tools. And sometimes there's a role for things like medication. For some guys that have a really organic type of anxiety, sometimes that can be helpful as well. But I think we've talked about so many helpful things tonight, sleep. We've talked about diet, exercise, yoga, being in your body, right? And then sometimes guys have things like trauma. They've gone through traumatic things in life, right? And that can also fuel anxiety. So that might be another indicator to go talk to somebody. And it doesn't have to be a therapist. It could be a coach. It could be a life coach. It could be a mentor, just somebody in your life that really could sit and listen. And that can be a really healing thing as well. Yeah, so thanks for listening tonight, guys. This was a really great show, and we'll look forward to the next one. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for having me.